The John Deere 4440 rolled off the assembly line in 1977. Today, more than 4 decades later, farmers are paying premium prices to get their hands on one. Search for it on the used market, and you will find listings at $30,000, $40,000, sometimes more, for a tractor that is older than most of the people driving it. This does not make sense. Modern tractors have GPS guidance, climate-controlled cabs, and engines that meet current emissions standards. They are faster, more efficient, and packed with technology. But farmers keep hunting for machines from the 1980s. They are not doing this for nostalgia. They are doing it because these tractors work. The 1980s represented a golden era in agricultural machinery. Manufacturers built tractors during the narrow window after hydraulics and power shift transmissions matured, but before electronics took over. The result was machines engineered for decades of hard use, simple enough that anyone with a wrench could fix them, and tough enough to outlast the farms they worked on. We are counting down 13 tractors from the 1980s that farmers still fight over at auctions today. And number 1 is bringing more money now than it did new. 13 tractors from this era proved the philosophy worked. These machines are still in demand today because they represent something modern agriculture has lost: simplicity that does not sacrifice capability. The legends that started it all. Number 13. John Deere 4440 earned its nickname, the Iron Horse, through sheer endurance. Farmers ran these tractors 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, for years on end. The power shift transmission gave operators smooth shifting underload, something that felt almost magical compared to the gear-grinding alternatives. But the real genius was in what John Deere left out. No computer modules, no electronic fuel injection, just mechanical systems that worked and kept working. You can still find 4440s with original engines crossing 15,000 hours. The mechanical injection pump is something any decent mechanic can rebuild. The transmission, when maintained properly, outlasts the tractor around it. This is why the search volume for 4440s remains consistently high on used equipment sites. Farmers know what they are getting. Number 12. Ford T235. Ford took a different approach with the T235. This machine was about raw power. The 401 cubic inch engine produced over 190 horsepower at a time when that number meant something real. No inflated marketing figures, no optimistic dyno runs. Just a big displacement engine with a reputation for running forever. The T235 became legendary for its pulling power. Farmers described it as a locomotive on wheels, and they meant it literally. The 4-wheel drive system was built before manufacturers started adding complexity for the sake of features. It engaged when you needed it and stayed out of the way when you did not. The hydraulics were strong enough to handle any implement you could hook up. Ford built this tractor before the brand's agricultural division fell apart, and it showed in every component. Number 11. Massey Ferguson. 398 proved that the perfect tractor did not need to be the biggest or most powerful. This machine hit the sweet spot for mixed operations. It was big enough to handle serious field work, and small enough to be practical for daily tasks. The Perkins engine became bulletproof through a reputation earned across millions of hours in the field. What made the 398 special was its longevity in production. Massey Ferguson kept building variations of this design well into the 2000s in some markets. Manufacturers do not do that unless the design works. Parts availability remained strong, because the platform stayed relevant for so long. Farmers could buy a 398 knowing they would be able to keep it running for decades. These three tractors established the pattern. Different manufacturers, different design philosophies, but the same underlying principle: build it to last, make it repairable, and skip the unnecessary complexity. The rest of the industry was building to the same standard. Number 10. The Case IH Magnum 7100 series was struggling in the late 1980s. The merger between Case and International Harvester had created chaos. Dealers were confused, farmers were skeptical, and the product line was a mess of overlapping models. Then the Magnum 7100 series arrived and changed everything. These tractors saved the company. The 8.3-liter Cummins engine became the foundation of that success. Farmers ran these engines past 10,000 hours without major work. Some crossed 15,000 hours on original internals. The Cummins was not the most refined engine, but it was built like industrial equipment, because that is exactly what it was. Case IH borrowed proven technology from the construction and trucking worlds and dropped it into an agricultural chassis. The power-shift transmission matched the engine's durability. Other manufacturers were still struggling to build power-shift systems that lasted. Case IH got it right on the Magnum 7100. Smooth shifts, reliable operation, and a design that could handle abuse. Farmers who bought these tractors in 1987 are still running them today. The 7100 series is considered one of the toughest tractor lines ever manufactured, and the used market prices reflect that reputation. Allis-Chalmers 8070 did not survive the 1980s as an independent company. The brand died, absorbed into mergers and acquisitions. But the 8070 lives on with a cult following that refuses to let it fade away. This tractor represented everything Allis-Chalmers did right before the end. The 8070 delivered over 200 horsepower with an excellent power-to-weight ratio. It did not feel heavy in the field, despite its size. The cab was comfortable, genuinely comfortable, at a time when most tractor cabs were afterthoughts. Allis-Chalmers only built the 8070 for 2 years, from 1983 to 1985. Limited production made survivors more valuable. Farmers who own them know they have something special. Number 8. Deutz-Fahr DX took a completely different engineering approach with the DX 630 and 650. They used AIR-cooled engines, at a time when most manufacturers had abandoned air cooling by the 1980s. Deutz stuck with it and proved the concept worked brilliantly in the right applications. These tractors rarely overheat, and that matters enormously in hot climates where water-cooled engines struggle. Middle Eastern and African farmers discovered the DX series could work through conditions that killed conventional tractors. No radiator to clog with dust, no coolant to leak or boil over. Just air-cooled cylinders that kept running regardless of ambient temperature. The German engineering showed in the build quality. Deutz-Fahr built these tractors before over-engineering became a problem. They were sophisticated enough to be capable and simple enough to be reliable. You can still find DX 630s and 650s working in harsh environments decades after they left the factory. If you are still watching and you have run any of these, drop the hours on your highest hour tractor in the comments. Number 7. Volvo BM 700 series earned its reputation in the worst conditions on Earth. Scandinavian winters do not forgive mechanical weakness. These tractors worked through months of sub-zero temperatures and came back for more. Farmers called them tanks on wheels, and the comparison was accurate. The torque and pulling power defied the specifications on paper. Volvo BM built these machines heavy and strong. The basic design meant anyone could repair them. No special tools, no proprietary systems, just straightforward mechanical engineering that worked. Number 6. The Zetor 7745 arrived from Czechoslovakia with a completely different engineering philosophy. Eastern European manufacturers did not have the luxury of building complicated machines. They needed tractors that worked in harsh conditions with minimal support infrastructure. The result was the 7745, a tractor that proved simple and tough could beat sophisticated and fragile. The 7745 had minimal electronics. What few electrical components existed were basic and easy to replace. The gearbox was straightforward, built with gears that meshed and shafts that turned. Nothing fancy, nothing that required specialized knowledge to maintain. Farmers discovered these tractors ran forever if you kept oil in them and changed filters occasionally. Parts remained cheap because Zetor kept the design simple and manufactured components in volume. A hydraulic pump for a 7745 costs a fraction of what you would pay for an equivalent Western European part. This economic reality keeps these tractors viable decades after production. Farmers can afford to maintain them, so they do. Cracking the top 5. At number 5, Fiatagri 8090, 9090, and 190 series. Fiat surprised everyone with this series. Italian agricultural machinery did not have the reputation of German or American equipment. These tractors changed that perception through sheer reliability. The 4-cylinder Iveco engines were strong, efficient, and nearly indestructible. Fuel economy impressed farmers who tracked operating costs. The Fiatagri models sipped diesel compared to their competitors. This was not marketing propaganda. It was measurable reality that showed up in farm budgets year after year. The engines ran clean and cool, characteristics that extended their service life far beyond expectations. You still see these tractors working across Europe and the Middle East. When they finally wear out, farmers rebuild them instead of replacing them. The design is worth preserving. Parts availability remains strong because Fiat kept the platform in production long enough to establish a robust supply chain. Number 4. John Deere 3140 represented the company's European engineering at its peak. This was not a scaled-down American design. It was purpose-built for European farming conditions, and it showed in every detail. The 6-cylinder engine routinely crossed 15,000 hours. Some documented examples exceeded 20,000 hours on original internals. The hydraulics were simple and rarely failed. Farmers could diagnose and fix problems without calling dealers. This self-sufficiency mattered enormously on operations, where downtime meant missed weather windows and lost income. It made the 3140 remarkably durable. The 3140 became the perfect all-rounder for mixed farms running livestock and small arable operations. These tractors still command strong prices on the used market. Farmers know what a 3140 represents. It is not the biggest tractor Deere ever built or the most powerful, but it might be the most durable European model the company ever produced. Number 3. Case IH 885. They got the 885 exactly right. This compact tractor used the legendary D268 engine, a power plant that earned its reputation through decades of reliable service. The 885 was ideal for loader work, hay operations, and utility tasks. It had enough power to be useful, and it was small enough to be practical. The mechanical simplicity made maintenance straightforward. Farmers could perform most repairs with basic tools and common sense. The 885 represented case engineering, when the company focused on building machines that worked, rather than machines that impressed at trade shows. This is considered the best mid-size case machine ever built. That's not nostalgia talking. It is the assessment of farmers who have run multiple generations of equipment and know the difference between good and great. The 885 was great. The Kubota L245 and L275 proved that small did not mean weak. These compact tractors built unstoppable reputations through sheer endurance. Farmers bought them for small operations and loader work, and then discovered they could handle far more than expected. The fuel efficiency remains impressive by modern standards. These little Kubotas sip diesel while delivering steady power. The engines are simple, overbuilt for their displacement, and designed to run for decades. Maintenance is straightforward because there is nothing complicated to maintain. The used market for these models tells the story. L245s and L275s resell at full value because owners refuse to let them go. When one finally comes up for sale, it moves quickly. Farmers understand what they are buying. These tractors represent reliability you cannot find in modern compact equipment. And at number 1, the tractor everybody is still chasing, Renault 11054 and 12054. These two do not get the recognition they deserve. These French-built tractors are undervalued on the used market, despite exceptional quality. The M and WM engines last for decades with basic maintenance. Ergonomics were ahead of competitors, with controls placed logically and cabs designed for long days. Renault built these tractors when the company still cared about agricultural equipment. The engineering showed in details that competitors got overlooked. Seals that did not leak, bearings that did not fail, transmissions that shifted smoothly after thousands of hours, French engineering that does not get the fame it earned. The pattern across all 13 tractors is clear. Size did not matter in the 1980s. What mattered was the engineering philosophy. Manufacturers built these machines to last, made them repairable, and skipped unnecessary complexity. They used mechanical fuel injection instead of electronics, simple transmissions with proven designs, engines designed for lifespans of 20,000 hours, and hydraulics that farmers could fix themselves. These were not accidents. This was deliberate engineering by companies that understood their customers needed equipment that worked year after year. The tractors succeeded because they delivered exactly what farmers required: reliable power that did not quit. Modern regulations killed this type of tractor forever. Emissions standards now require diesel particulate filters, selective catalytic reduction, and exhaust gas recirculation. These systems add complexity that reduces reliability. The electronics needed to manage emissions create failure points that did not exist in mechanical systems. Manufacturers profit from shorter lifespans and dealer repairs. Tractors built to last 20,000 hours do not generate the parts, revenue, and replacement sales that modern business models require. The engineering priorities shifted from durability to profitability. Farmers understand this reality, which explains why 1980s tractors command premium prices. A 40-year-old machine that still works is worth more than a new tractor that might not last half as long. The pattern is clear: simpler was better, and everyone who works the land knows it. These 13 tractors represent an era that will not return. They were built when manufacturers competed on quality instead of features, when engineers designed for decades instead of warranty periods. That philosophy created machines that refuse to die. if you want more stories about equipment that outlasted everything around it. Check out the video on machines that changed industries. Subscribe for deep dives into engineering that actually mattered.